How do we read our congregation as we lead worship? You know, this is a question that people who are just beginning to lead worship or are in the first few years of leading worship in a community, all the way to very experienced leaders ask all the time. How do I get a gauge? How do I assess what's actually going on in our congregation as we engage in our gathered worship experiences together? Well, let me just give you a few ideas as to how we can assess a bit where our congregation is at. First of all, take their temperature. And I'm going to draw a little thermometer here. That's a thermometer. I don't know. Yeah, we'll just kind of lengthen it. And anyway, take their temperature. Take their temperature. And the way that I would do that is I would talk to pastors, I would talk to leaders around me, say, where do you see our community in terms of its health, in terms of its growth, in terms of our health in our worship life together? And what I mean by that is our gathered worship life together. Does there seem to be engagement, connection? Does there seem to be hope rising in the room as we have our times of worship together? Get some feedback from leaders. Get a bit of a temperature. When my kids were young and they weren't feeling well, I would take the time to sit down with them, wait for a thermometer to tell me where they were really at, and then make some decisions based on that. I encourage you, take your time. Get to know where your congregation is really at. Don't simply judge by outer appearances. You've probably had that experience that I've had where someone was staring at me with a death stare all the way through the worship set, it seemed. And then at the end of the service, this really has happened to me a number of times, that very same person came up to me and said, "That was the most wonderful worship experience of my entire life." We can't always read what's going on through what's happening visibly, nor do we want to push people to express themselves in worship only or primarily visibly when so much more that is healthy could be going on underneath the surface. So number 2, listen to their chat. In other words, listen to their conversations. Listen to what's going on inside the church building as they're gathering for worship. What's going on outside in the foyer. Is there expectation? Is there a sense of appreciation that you can sense in what's about to happen? Is there a buzz? Is there some sense of energy as people gather? Now, buzz is not always a good indicator either, because true, rich, meaningful worship sometimes is happening in beautiful ways in the interior life in our congregation. And not necessarily all is expressed out in that exterior voicing during worship. But we can learn something. There's no one way to read our congregation, but there are many ways. Take it in. See if there's a sense of anticipation. See if there's a sense of, we are here to meet with God, and we always know that that opportunity is before us. Number 3, open up your eyes. Now that I've said that we can't always see everything, I am going to draw another set of eyes, because I like to draw eyes. And I want to say, open your eyes in the midst of worship. As you lead, take the time to look around at the congregation. Don't freeze them or scare them with stares, but take the time to open your eyes, to see what's happening. When you're not leading worship, go to the back of the church, as I have done for decades, and just see what's happening in the community. See what's going on in the back row, what's going on in the corner where the children are crying. See how the truck driver is responding to God. See how the computer systems analyst or the single mother or the children, see how they're responding in the midst of worship, and let that be another read that you can get. We can't see everything, but there is some level of engagement that we can see with our eyes open. And finally, this last one, invite selective feedback. Select feedback. And what I mean by that is you may want to poll your entire congregation on how they are perceiving your times of worship. But I go to particular people who I trust will be honest with me, will be encouraging, but at the same time very clear as to what they sense is going on in our community. I go to very intuitive people who seem to be perceiving the life of the community. They're the soft spots in the community. I look for those people and I ask them, what do you sense is happening? And that adds into reading our congregation as we lead worship. Don't get hung up on what you see in front of you, but try to bring in all the elements so that you can perceive it well and lead from that standpoint, not simply as one who needs some physical things to be happening so that we feel affirmed as worship leaders.